The more I hear it and use it, the more I've come to hate the word complexity when it refers to board games. I mean, I guess it's a fine word and all, but people use it to define two very different things in board games, and I think it adds a lot of confusion. Hi, my name is Ryan. In this video, I'm going to define the two main ways people use the word complexity in board games, give you a good sense of what each of them mean, and then hopefully help you not miss out on a new awesome board game that you would have loved, but never checked out because the complexity was either too high or too low. The first type of complexity I'm going to talk about today is the type of complexity that comes from a game having so many moving parts, it is simply difficult to learn how to play the game. It is difficult to learn the rules. First Martians is a cooperative board game that I actually like quite a bit, but it has so much going on. You count up oxygen and power supplies, age plants, draw crisis cards, move damage track, explore Mars, gather resources, deal with missions, fix broken parts, build new buildings, use special cards, lose health, add morale, gain stress, maybe have a fist fight, and then on top of that, learn an entire mission sheet that will change each and every time you play the game. The game is complicated, tons of moving parts, and not all those moving parts will sink in until you've played the game for a while. Now, I am by no means saying this first type of complexity is bad. Actually, a lot of us like that kind of complexity. It's fun to play a game where when you first get into it, it isn't immediately apparent what you're supposed to do. You kind of have to pull some levers or do some things and kind of say, oh, I see, so I probably need more of this to help me out later in the game when I try to do this. There's a lot of joy in deciphering and figuring out how a new system works. But all that being said, this doesn't necessarily mean that these games are hard to win. I mean, they could be, but not necessarily. Or we're not even saying these are games where really highly strategic skill is going to win you the game. It might, but it might not. That is what category number 2 of complexity is all about. So the second category of complexity means that games take a high level of skill or a high level of strategy to be good at, to be able to win. Not necessarily that they're hard to figure out. The figuring out could be the easy part in some of these games, but it's really hard to be good at them. Chess is the most widely known example of this type of complexity. I mean, if you compare it to modern board games, the rules of chess, learning how to actually play chess isn't actually that bad. Typically you get it done on like a sheet of paper, but the skill and the strategy, if you had to rank that, it would have to max out every scale you ranked it on. People have been playing chess for hundreds of years and they're still figuring out new strategy, new ways to be good at the game. You can learn how to play chess in 5 or 10 minutes, but you will be horrible at it compared to most people for a really long time. But this type of complexity isn't always so easy to pin down. I have a little ridiculous kids game called Chick-a-Pig, chicken pigs mixed into one animal, and it's really cute. What you're doing is you're on a board and you have Chick-a-Pigs who are trying to get through your side of the map, trying to get through your gate, and they can be blocked by hay bales, they can be blocked by your opponent's Chick-a-Pigs. There's also a giant cow that moves around the map and poops, and if you slide through the poops, you get a negative. It's ridiculous, right? It would not surprise me if I asked someone, what's the complexity of this game? Well, you can learn it in 5 minutes and it looks like a cute little kid's game. So if they said scale of 1 to 5, 1, it's as easy as it gets, that would not surprise me at all. But if I ask someone what's the complexity of this game, if you peel back the surface of this game just a little bit, you will see an almost pure strategy game, kind of in the style of chess, where if you can really think about all your moves, all the tactics for everything you're doing out there, you can dominate people. This game does not have a lot of luck, so someone could rate this complexity 4, and that wouldn't surprise me either because it's almost a pure strategy game where seeing the future of how all these Chick-a-Pigs can play out on the map is going to make you win. Now, there's another little board game I own called Villagers, and Villagers has a much higher rules overhead than chess, and especially Chick-a-Pig. There's villagers, each of them are different. There's phases of the turn. There's a drafting phase, so playing to your village phase. Some villagers give bonuses to each other in the final score. There's 2 different scoring phases, and each one work different ways, but due to a high amount of randomness, it's not necessarily the type of complexity where high skill, but it definitely has at least quite a few things going on in the figuring out how the game works category. So I think the biggest danger of these two words is that we can say a game is complicated or light and not be using the same definition or be speaking of the same type of complexity as the person listening to us. So imagine a player just played some huge games that have tons of moving parts and they were just fascinated by how much can go on in one game. So they hear about a new game and someone says, oh, this game's pretty complicated. They're like, well, I want a complicated game. So they order it and they get it and they realize it's a fairly simple, pure strategy game well, they might be really disappointed. They might have no interest in playing a pure strategy game. They might want something complicated, as in tons of moving parts, kind of hard to learn, kind of hard to see how everything fits together in the discovery of doing that, not necessarily trying to perfect a strategy in a very pure, strategic, abstract strategy sort of way. So I suggest that whenever you use the word complexity, you define it. You try to be clear. So rather than saying Arkham Horror, First Martians, and Wayfarers are complex, you could say Arkham Horror has so many icons, so many different components in the game, it's hard to remember what they all do when you first get into it. You'll get after a few plays, it's just challenging to start it. Or First Martians has so many moving parts, so many things can affect other things, you might not really absorb it right away, it might take a little bit. Or you could say Wayfarers of the South Tigris is an interesting game. It can be a little hard to first play because there are about 22 spots to start the game out where you can put a worker. So just trying to take the time to read all those makes it a little bit hard to first play through. Once you get into it though, you'll learn the spots, you'll be fine. By all those definitions I just gave, I made it clear that the issue was the type of complexity that made it hard to play, not necessarily the type of complexity that makes it skillful or strategic. Those games all have skill and strategy as well, but definitely the people who say those games are complicated aren't saying they're as hard as chess. They're saying it's just hard to learn those games. But if it's the other type of complexity, I personally don't really use the word complexity to describe that. I say in this video a lot because I know a lot of people do use that word to describe that kind of complexity. I tend to like the word strategy. I'd say, oh, this game has a lot of deep strategy to it. Or hey, this game looks simple on the surface, but a good player has really perfected it and thought through so many strategies. It takes a while to get into it and beat someone who's good because the strategy is chess-like. It's so deep, it's just pure, no luck kind of strategy. And like I said earlier, obviously games are going to incorporate both types of strategies. Wayfarers of the South Tigris is very difficult to learn how to play, get into, but it's not a pure strategy game, but it does incorporate obviously good strategy. It's going to help you win the game. Not only knowing what games can use what level of complexity, but also ask yourself, what are your favorite games? And kind of see, do you like games that tend to be more complicated, as in there's a lot of moving parts and hard to learn? Or do you appreciate games that more have skill, that the player who plays it a lot will discover, really deep strategies and become basically very good at those games? One last area I think that knowing the different complexities of games can be really helpful for you is when giving games to other people, maybe as a gift, or maybe trying to buy a game for a significant other, realizing that some people are okay with certain types of complexities, like maybe the pure strategy, they're fine with that. They're fine with trying to outsmart each other, make good moves, but they really don't want a big rules overhead. Or maybe they're fine with learning hard games, but they don't want to sit there and count out 7 turns in advance. Knowing kind of where people fall and how much they kind of go up on each chart, I think can really help you in, again, gifting a game or trying to find a game to play with someone else. I hope you found all this very helpful and interesting. If you did, of course, follow the channel, see more videos like this one right here, and also lots of playthroughs of board games, some solo playthroughs, and also some group ones. See ya.